Hi, my name is Naila, and I'm going to be telling you how I competed in a state pageant without a pageant coach. Nothing but me, my friends, and some vibes. Well, I found out the pageant was going to be happening in January, and the date was March 3rd. So I really only had 2 months to fully prepare for the pageant. I just realized I never actually said what pageant I competed in. I competed to be Miss Black North Carolina. And at that point, and by the time I got back to school and started practicing, I really only had a month and a half. When you create a rehearsal schedule, stick to it for you. Don't stick to it because it's moving around somebody else's time. Stick to it so that it works for you and your timing so that you can stay consistent with it. The reason why I say you need to have a set schedule for yourself is because you want to make sure it becomes a routine at some point for you to constantly go to your pageant practices. And if you are doing this by yourself, you don't have an accountability partner. So you need to be your accountability partner. It needs to feel weird that you're not going to a pageant practice after class or after work. And it keeps your brain on a productive mode. I don't know, I feel like when it comes to stuff like that, you have to trick your brain into remembering like, okay, this is lax time, but this is work times. And I didn't allow myself to be disturbed during those times, especially because I wanted to make sure I took it seriously. I feel like once you allow yourself to slack off, it really does show in your work. Let's start with the platform, because the platform is what helps you with your pageant questions. My platform was Your Mind, Your First Crown, and I was focusing on empowering emotional intelligence within the Black community. Once I had my platform points down and understanding what the message was that I was trying to convey, that's when everything just kind of fell into place and answering the questions became a lot easier. So for rehearsals, I did structure them based on priority. I did have my one friend who was at almost all of my practices. She was definitely a faithful queen, let me tell you. And what we did, we started off with just speed interview questions. I'm actually going to provide you with my master list of all of the pageant questions that I've come across in the last few years as a pageant coach and as a pageant contestant. We would do like a speed round of questions. So she would ask me the questions and I had 45 seconds to answer it. If I didn't answer in 45 seconds, then that was it. So I started to write down my answers to the master list on paper, and I just created maybe like 1 to 2 sentences to answer each question. I try not to write too much, but I tried to gather my general idea of what I wanted to say and something that was easy for me to remember. When I wrote down the answers to these questions, I always knew that they weren't solid answers. They weren't going to be something that I was going to memorize and say directly and verbatim for what I wrote. I gave myself wiggle room to give or take from the answer depending on how it was asked, and I made sure that they always tied back to my platform or my why. It was straight up question, answer it in 45 seconds, and if I didn't answer it in 45 seconds, I was just cut off. So I had to make sure I practiced having concise answers that actually got to the point. We would record me answering these rapid questions, and then we would go back, watch the video, and critique my answers. And after we would critique my answers, that's when I would stand up again and actually dissect each question while answering it. And this is where ChatGPT also comes into play. If I had a question that was worded this way, but it could possibly be worded this way, I wanted to make sure that I was able to recognize those patterns or similar types of questions where I could always tie it back to my platform, because tying it back to your platform is what keeps you from rambling and it gives your answers some direction. And I just had to make sure that I understood how to answer a question, whether it was a random question that I've never answered before or a question that I've heard a million times. And recording your practices is what's actually going to track your progress as you get closer to the pageant. I loved sitting back and going through my pageant practice videos because it showed me where I needed to work the most, where I've improved. Another thing that I would do during pageant practices, I would watch other pageants. I would sit there and just dissect who I thought was gonna win and why, and if my answer was correct. I feel like that's kind of a fun way to sit back and understand pageants, because once you start to think like a judge, you start to judge yourself like a judge. You start to think about the characteristics of a winner and what they are looking for. Because it's pretty universal what a judge is looking for. That's something that I made my pageant girls do. I made them watch pageants. I made them sit there and watch videos back of themselves. A lot of our practices also had to do with confidence workshops. It takes a lot to really get on stage and present yourself. It's easier to present a character than it is to just present who you are and what you stand for. So even when I was coaching other girls, sometimes we would sit there and have to do some character work. What are you here for? Why are you so afraid to get on stage when you chose to be here? Why choose now to doubt yourself when you were the one that entered into the pageant? Character development is so important in competing on stage for a pageant. I just don't think it's spoken about as much as it could be. I'm a firm believer that when judges ask you a question, it's easier to answer it when you know your morals and your values. You'll always have something to go back to. So that's something that I really had to sit down and write out. Who is Naila Archer and what do I want to see on that stage? When you're trying to gather your why for being on stage, ask yourself, when you pass away, what do you want people to look back and see from you? I wanted people to know that it's okay to have your bad days, but not to stay in those bad days. Acknowledge your emotions healthily. Take life one day at a time, because sometimes we can get into this rush of feeling overwhelmed and thinking that we have to think so far ahead when all we control is what's happening right now. So really dig deep and think about those questions, because they really are important, and it does help you develop as a person as you are coming along farther in the process, because whether or not you win or lose, you need to be happy with who you are after the pageant. That's exactly why I was happy with winning first runner-up. I was about elated. I was like, look, y'all, I was excited regardless, because my friends and family were in the crowd just as happy as I was. And at the end of the day, I accomplished something. I didn't just accomplish walking across that stage. I accomplished trials and tribulations, overcoming self-doubt, making my own outfits. I wasn't competing specifically for the crown. Like, obviously the goal is to win, right? I was there to enhance and develop who I was so that I can be a better leader. You have to be ready to go to pageant practice. You can't be like, oh, I have to go to pageant practice. Like, you have to actually change your attitude. You need to actually look forward to going to pageant practice. Get excited to put some work into yourself, because you are the best project that you could ever work on. Now, it's not a project just for you, because you are going to be in a position where you can inspire others. And that's why you need to know yourself enough to know that if you are going to be in a position to inspire others, you need to have a grasp on who you are, because people are going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you, how did you get the motivation to do this? How did you do this? Why did you do this? You know, I have trouble with this. Can you help me? You need to find ways to help people based on what you know, and learning more so that you can be a better service to others. When it comes to your day-to-day, you have to carry yourself as a queen. There's no reason why you need to be sitting there slouching. I'm sorry, but this slouching, I'm telling, bruh. I saw a study that said at some point, humans are gonna have like a bone poking out here, because our posture is so bad because we are looking at our phones all day. We're gonna have a bone. We're gonna start having some peanut heads, y'all. Like, well, me, not me. I don't got no peanut head. Looking down at your phone. No. Hold yourself up. You feel me? When you're sitting in class, sitting at a desk, or just standing up, back, sit. Keep your posture up. If you notice that you're slouching, literally, they taught me this in modeling. Instead of walking around like this, looking all sluggish, you feel me? Like, who want to see somebody walk across the stage like that? No, like, up, sit, back, head up, chest up, to the sky, and walk with some confidence. You feel me? Walk like you know where you're going. Walk like you got some purpose. Carry yourself like that. That's how I started walking around and carrying myself on campus. And let me tell you, people are intimidated by those who walk confidently. It ain't nobody but their problem. When you walk with purpose and you hold yourself with confidence, it does a lot for your mental health. It does help with depression. It helps with just keeping your mind out of the gutter. I'm not saying that it's the full-on solution to whatever problems you might be going through. It definitely does help with your attitude in your day-to-day if you just hold yourself with some confidence. Not arrogance, but confidence. Start walking like how you would walk on stage. And I'm not talking about with no bounce. Like, don't be walking around bouncing like you some bippity-boppity boo. No, walk and glide. Let me show you how we can do this walking on a day-to-day. Instead of walking like that is, you can walk like this. Where you going, girl? I'm having a conversation with my girl's arm on my phone. You feel me? There's a different type of glide, a confidence when you hold yourself up and you walk properly. Oh. Next, when you're speaking, start paying attention to how long you're talking and what you're saying to people. I tend to be a rambler. I can yap for hours, but I had to start realizing when I was going on a tangent or when I was just talking too much. Next, talk to some past queens. It does help to have conversations with them and just kind of getting their understanding of what they think about pageantry, how they prepared, what it was like being on stage, because everybody's going to give you a different answer, but you're going to see where all of the answers are cohesive. I feel like talking to past queens is what actually helped me get out of my shell and reminded me that anybody can achieve anything. Talking to past queens makes the title feel more achievable. If you can practice in front of a mirror, do so. Have your friends call you randomly sometimes to ask you pageant questions. I remember one time I had to answer a pageant question while I was going into the calf on Fried Chicken Wednesday, but I answered it. It helps you get on your feet and answer the questions better. I had my friends call me and ask me pageant questions at the most random times of day. I remember one time I got called walking into the calf on Fried Chicken Wednesday. So I'm dealing with a crowd in my ear on top of having to answer a pageant question on. But let me tell you, it does help you lock in. And it does tell you where you're at as far as answering questions on your feet. You feel me? You could practice all you want in pageant practice, but when it comes to the moment that you're actually standing there in front of those judges, it's a whole different ballgame because they're gonna look you in the eye. They're gonna sit there and be like, like they're not rude. They're not rude, but they are gonna question you. They're gonna look you dead in your face. My camera battery died on me. First, it was like, your camera's overheated. And then all of a sudden, my camera, I let it cool down a sec. I turned the camera back on. Now it said battery exhausted. In conclusion, when it comes to pageantry, it's all about the preparation and the work in order to get on that stage, because getting on stage is just the finale, but the buildup is what's really going to stick. Therefore, structure your rehearsals, watch pageants, and have fun in the mirror. That is another thing. Have fun in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror. Like, I have a mirror right here, but look at yourself while you're asking questions. See how you react. See where you can change your facial expressions to feel a bit more welcoming, because that's another thing. Having a good smile really reels people in. You have to be comfortable with seeing yourself in the mirror. You got to look at yourself in the eye, answer questions, looking yourself in the eye, smile, practice moving, practice walking. Just get as much mirror time as possible with yourself so that you know what other people are looking at when they see you. Confidence creates this pretty girl aura, and you really need that on stage because people can feel genuine energy. They can feel confidence. That's how I competed in a state pageant in 2 months. Subscribe. I'm going to be vlogging, giving you behind the scenes content, and just bringing you along this entire journey as I'm running for Miss Black USA. And follow me on social media because that's where you'll get real-time updates on everything. Okay? Bye.